I'm getting so many questions like this one from a listener named Sarah.
Hey Mel, it's Sarah. Can you talk about starting over at 40 and being terrified doing it? I turned 40 last year and my life is not okay. I've been in a toxic marriage for 11 years with a man who also has a lot of health problems. #guilt. I was laid off from a job I loved and I have gained a crazy amount of weight. That's just the icing on the cake. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know if I have ever been truly happy. I would love to hear your advice on this topic. I want the second act of my life to be amazing. Help me, Mel. Thank you.
All right, Sarah. First of all, thank you to Sarah for doing the work for all of us, because I swear to God, I am getting this question a bazillion times. And I want to say one thing out of the gate. Sarah said that she is terrified of starting over. First of all, everybody, you're never starting over. You're always starting from experience. This is so important for you to understand. Just because you got laid off, just because you've ended a relationship, you're not starting from scratch. You have all the experiences, good and bad, in your life that you can now use to reinvent and reimagine what the next chapter of your life looks like next. And I'm seeing the same question that Sarah's asking. I don't even know where to start, Mel. I know that I got to change things up. I know I got this flame inside me. I want to be happy. I deserve to be happy. I'm not even sure I even know what that means. I am seeing this question in so many forms, whether it's those of you in your 20s that are writing and you've graduated from college and you have no idea how to begin creating the next chapter of your life, or you're writing in at the age of 33. And like Sarah, you've been laid off from your job. In fact, it seems like everywhere I go, I don't know if this is happening to you, whether it's being on the set of a television show or giving a keynote presentation, at some point, everybody's kind of leaning over going, yeah, we just went through layoffs. So you're not alone. Or maybe you're on the other side of this. Because so many people got laid off, you actually have been promoted. But now you're freaking out because you feel like you're an imposter in this role and you're not capable of handling it. Or perhaps you're 55, seeing a lot of these kinds of questions. Mel, I am now an empty nester. I want this next chapter of my life to be incredible, and I'm starting to look at my spouse now that the kids are gone, and I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. Or maybe you just met the love of your life, and it's unbelievable. But you are worried, terrified, in fact, that you're going to screw it up. So I want to talk about Sarah's question globally, because she's not the only one who's feeling kind of scared about this notion of what this next chapter might be. She used the word terrified. You don't have to be terrified. This is one of the greatest opportunities of your life. So if you want to change, you either want to step into your power when good things are happening, or you want to just look out on the road ahead and create an exciting new possibility for yourself. You are listening to the exact thing that you need to hear, because that brings me to the overall topic today, and that is reinvention. Now, 90% of the questions that I'm getting right now are about the topic of reinvention. How do I reinvent myself? How do I reinvent my life? You may not be using that word. I mean, Sarah didn't, but that is exactly what you and I are going to talk about today. Because I want you to imagine a brand new possibility for your life. And if you, like Sarah, can say, I want to be happy, I want the next chapter of my life to be amazing. If you can just even start there, all you have to do is start to think about what kind of a map do you need in order to chart a course to make that possibility that you see for your life a reality. And I love this topic of reinvention. I love it, love it, love it, because I have this metaphor that I've been using for years when it comes to understanding reinvention. And what is the metaphor? The metaphor that I use is a road trip. That's right. Life is one big road trip. And we're going to use this metaphor of a road trip to demystify the entire concept and process of reinventing yourself or reinventing your life. And for those of you that have listened to my #1 ranked audio series on Audible called Reinvent Your Life, you have heard me talk about this metaphor. And this is such a powerful concept because the fact is, life is a journey. It's one big road trip. And for too many of us, that road trip is boring and monotonous. And I want to shake things up. I want your life to be the most exciting, exhilarating, amazing road trip that you could possibly imagine. And we're all on this big road trip. We all began at the exact same mile marker, 0. Every single year of your life is another mile marker on this twisting, amazing journey called life. For me, I'm at mile marker 54. That is how far down the road I am. And so I want you to stop and just think, okay, well, what mile marker am I at right now? And it's a useful exercise to think about it that way, because when I say to you, hey, I'm at mile marker 54, that tells me that there's a lot of road that I've covered behind me. But guess what? There is a huge open road ahead of me. And when you take responsibility for charting that course of where that open road is going to lead you, you take control of your life. That's what reinvention is all about. It's about creating a map, picking a destination, and charting your course on this road called life. And here's what's exciting about that. You get to choose. You get to choose how fast you're going to drive, whether you're going to take the highway, whether you're going to twist and turn, where you want to go next. And so Sarah's question was, Mel, where do I start? We're going to start by pulling over. And the reason why we're going to start by just mentally pulling over together for a second is because Sarah is literally describing her life as if she is driving through a hellish, heavy rainstorm with hail dropping down. I mean, between the toxic husband and the weight she's put on and getting laid off from her dream job, holy smokes, it's like raining sideways in your life right now, Sarah. But that's okay. That's okay. Because we know that the rain doesn't last forever. We know that on the road ahead, there are going to be sunny skies and there's going to be big fluffy clouds and all kinds of amazing views. And you can make it through this rainstorm. And so here's what we're going to do, though. You can't possibly assess where you're going until you pull over for a second and you reflect on where you're at right now. And more importantly, where do you want to go next? I mean, think about the last time you got lost. When you get lost, does driving around help you find yourself? No. You got to pull over. You got to figure out where you are. You got to consult the mile marker. You got to look for landmarks. And then you got to figure out, okay, where am I going next? And so pulling over is a mental strategy. Visualize yourself right now, just pulling off the road of life onto the side for a second. Because by pulling over for just a second, you're acknowledging what Sarah's saying. You're going to hit the pause button on your life as it is right now, and we're going to take a second to collect ourselves, and then we're going to figure out the destination and where we want to go next. And that brings me to the next step of reinventing your life. And I'm going to go to a question from a listener who has pulled over. She is reflecting on where she's at right now. Sounds like she's got a flat tire, not real happy. So let's hear this question.
Hi, Mel. It's Jen. I'm struggling going through a breakup, and it's hard because I thought I found the person that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I was very happy, and I guess I thought I found my person, but this breakup is just affecting me with work, and it's just a struggle. It's just a daily struggle to get up and a daily struggle to get dressed. I would just love some advice.
Thank you for being so honest about what you're dealing with. And what you're dealing with right now is a detour on the road trip called life. That is what this is. And all detours in life, whether it is a breakup or it's the death of somebody that you love or losing a job or just anything that happens that can happen in life, just anything that happens that takes you off the route that you thought you were going to go down. And in those moments, it is important to pull over. It is important to feel sad and to let those emotions rise up. But you can't stay in that place. You can't allow it. You know, if you get a flat tire, if you get into an accident, what do? You pull over, you fix the car, and you move forward. And that's what you have to do now. You have spent enough time being sad. You have spent enough time lamenting what happened. You have spent enough time looking in the rearview mirror at this relationship. If you're somebody that is looking backwards, you're looking at the past, you're looking at the road behind you, and you're spending way too much of your time and your energy wishing things were different, feeling sad about the miles that you've already been down and that you wish you had done something different. You wish you would have ended up. You wish that here at 24, you would have majored in a different thing because whatever it is that you're doing that involves the rearview mirror, stop. Because you're not going that way. Think about the road trip analogy. Does a car on a road trip drive forward down the road? Or do you go on a road trip by driving backwards? Are you getting my point? There's a reason why the windshield in a car is so much bigger than the rearview mirror. You're not going backwards. And you can't drive forward if you're always staring in the rearview mirror. And so you did the right thing by feeling sad. You did the right thing by pulling over. But now it's time for you to look out the windshield and look at the road ahead. And here's what I want you to do. As you're pulled over on this mile marker with me, again, I'm at 54. Just think to yourself, what mile marker are you at? There's a lot of us that assess where we're at and we start to judge ourselves. Like, oh, I should have done this by now. I wish I had it all figured out. I should have been with the love of my life. I thought this was going to work out. Stop and look at the open road. Allow yourself to entertain this incredible idea that the happiest, most fulfilled version of you is on the road ahead. Imagine if this detour that you've been forced to take is the best thing that ever happened to you. Why? It's about alignment. Your life is always trying to take you on the unique path that is aligned with you and what's meant for you. And when you allow yourself to believe that this is happening for a reason, that this heartache, that this breakup, that this person that was in my life, and now life is handing me this detour, that this was meant to be because it is preparing me for something better that's coming. You have to start to cultivate that. Because if you don't have that kind of attitude as you are charting the next course, the next chapter, the next leg of your journey, you're going to be gripping that wheel. You're going to be looking in the rearview mirror, and you are going to go nowhere fast. I know it doesn't feel good to not be able to get out of bed. It doesn't feel good to be sad. And the reason why you're feeling those things is because you believe that what's meant for you is behind you. It's not true. You got to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, force yourself out of that bed. You have to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself out that door, get yourself dressed, and start walking forward. That's what you have to do. Imagine if this detour that just happened, somebody that you're in love with broke up with you. That sucks. There's no way around it. It totally sucks. Just like getting a flat tire sucks. So what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Well, I'll tell you what I don't want you to do, because this is why you can't get out of bed. You are telling yourself that this happened because there's something wrong with you. You're telling yourself that this happened because you're not worthy, because you're not good enough. And that is complete bullshit. You want to know why this happened? let's go back to our road trip. This happened because every single one of us has a completely unique and deeply personal journey that we take on this thing called life. And I choose to believe that whatever detour hits you, it is aligned with what's meant for you. I also deeply believe that the best years of my life are on the road ahead. If you can embrace those two truths, that every detour in life that does not go according to plan, it's not what you wanted. And there have been so many detours in my life that have been painful, but I can see now how they were aligned with pushing me in the direction I needed to go, giving me the lessons that were aligned with my purpose or the things that I needed to learn in order to make the years ahead even better, even happier, even more purposeful. You have to tell yourself that, because what's the alternative? The alternative is you feeling like a victim. You feeling as though, you're never good enough. Nothing's ever going to work out. Bullshit. This detour is not something you wanted. This detour is going to open you up to something that you needed. I swear to God, when you start to think like that, when you grab the wheel of your life, when you take responsibility, not for the detour, but for how you're going to navigate what happens next, that's when you tap into your power, and you can do that. This isn't about some guy breaking your heart. This is about you discovering how to love yourself. So here's what I want you to do. Clearly, you believe that finding your person is something that you need to do. So on a piece of paper, write down all the things that this person does for you. How do they make you feel? What are some of the things that they do for you? The kind of person that you're going to fall madly, deeply in love with. Now, all those things that you write down, do them for yourself. That is what this detour is trying to teach you. That the one person that you need to truly love and truly be in a relationship with, your person, so to speak. You already found that person, and it's you. And so I think that this detour is giving you the detour you needed, the breakdown you needed, so that you could strengthen your relationship with yourself. That's why this happened. And you can think the years ahead, Mel Robbins, the years ahead, these are going to be the best, most loving, happiest years of my life. You, my friend, reinvent everything. I'm so excited you're here because we're talking about the road trip called life, how you navigate it, how you chart a new course, picking the proper destination to go to next, and most importantly, having the kind of attitude that the best years of your life are on the road ahead. And at any single moment, you can make a decision to take the wheel of your life and turn it in a new direction. And that brings me to our next question from a listener named McKenna.
Hey Mel, it's McKenna. My question for you is, what do you do when you feel blah? Everything is fine, life is going your way, nothing bad is happening, but all of a sudden you're stuck in the limbo of feeling absolutely nothing and lackadaisical. It can last a few minutes or even days. How do you push through and keep on keeping on? But I have a family and young kids that I don't get to see much because of my work schedule, so the time I have is very precious and I'd rather not spend it a gloomy gus. Have you felt like this before? What do you do to get out of it? Thank you for everything.
McKenna, boy, am I glad you asked me this question, because there is no way in hell I am going to let you stay in that blah space. And you just asked if I've ever felt that way before. Of course I have. This is so normal to have periods of your life where you feel blah, where you feel lackadaisical, where you just kind of have no energy. And there are a lot of words for this. People describe this as feeling stuck, being in survival mode, And coming out of the last 2 to 3 years that we've had, researchers have given it the label languish. It's just sort of this like, nothing's really wrong, but nothing's really right. You don't really have any enthusiasm. And if I go back to our metaphor about life being one big long road trip, the way that I would describe it is that you're just on autopilot right now. That's right. Cruise control is on. You're rolling down the road of life. You're exhausted. You're trying just to get to the next mile marker. Well, guess what? There's really, really good news here. And the first thing that I want to acknowledge you for is that you've already checked the box on step 1 for changing this situation. And that is you recognize it. Seriously, it's really important if you relate to what McKenna's saying, or you're going through the motions in life, you're just sort of on autopilot, you're not really paying attention, nothing's wrong, nothing's right, you're kind of blah, you're kind of bored. Step 1 is you got to check the box and say, boom, that's me. I'm on autopilot and I don't want to be on autopilot anymore. Step 2, you have to look ahead at that open road, and you must intentionally figure out a specific destination that makes you excited to drive toward it. One of my fondest memories from childhood was the summer that my father rented a motorhome, and we did a cross-country family road trip to hit as many national parks as we could. And the big, grand prize destination that my dad was like super excited about was we were going to reach Yellowstone, and we were going to stay at that big lodge at Yellowstone, and we were going to be able to see Old Faithful. And ironically, my dad, my brother, and his kids, and my husband Chris and our son, they're all on their way to Yellowstone right now. Talk about a full circle moment, little synchronicity there. This is the right story to tell you. What are the odds of that? So I remember, you want to know why that road trip was so exciting? It was because we always had something on the road ahead to look forward to, whether it was the world famous Corn Palace, which was a stop, or Wall Drug, or Mount Rushmore. We were inching our way toward the big destination, Yellowstone. But along the way, there were all these cool things on the road ahead that we were excited to check out. You need that in your life. And now some of this analogy is starting to make sense, right? Because if you're staring in the rearview mirror, that's not exciting. You're not heading in that direction. If you look out at the open road and you don't see anything in front of you that you're excited about, that's a problem. And so here's the solution, as counterintuitive as it may seem. When you look out on the open road, and for me, I always like to go and time travel about 2 years ahead, because I think in 24 months, you can chip away and make just about anything happen. That's plenty of time for you to start working toward something new. And there's 5 reasons why this matters. You have to get intentional about where you're headed next, about that destination, about your Yellowstone, which had always been a dream of my father's, to take his family there. And there is something that you dream about, and it's time to start dreaming big again, especially if you're feeling blah. And there are 5 reasons why this matters. 5 reasons why you need to dream big. Number 1, big dreams, a new destination that you're going to head towards, having something out on the horizon that you're looking forward to, that you're working toward, it creates energy in your life, which is something that you're clearly missing. I can hear it in your voice, McKenna. It creates excitement. It gives you something to look forward to. It gives you a goal to work toward. And when you have this sort of destination out there on the road ahead, just picking your head up out of the monotony of your day-to-day life, it creates momentum. And that forward momentum right out the front on the road ahead, that's so important, because that's missing for you right now, isn't it? When you see more of the same old, that's why commutes are so boring. There's nothing new. You're not commuting in your life. You got to create an epic road trip. And speaking of a new destination, A destination like a Yellowstone, something out there 2 years ahead of now, it changes the way you see the world right now. It's very similar to opening up the aperture on a camera to let more light in. New destinations on the road of life open you up to more possibilities in your life. So when you open up to more possibilities, I get it. Things are hard right now. I get it. You got a lot on your plate. Well, guess what? 2 years from now, you can change just about anything. And when you start to open up to bigger dreams, you start to retrain and reshape your outlook, your mind, your attitude to be bigger and better and more exciting than what you're dealing with right now. The third thing that happens when you get very serious about grabbing that wheel and cranking it toward a new destination, you're going to suddenly see all kinds of possibility and changes that you could make. See, this is the part where that blah feeling, it goes away really quickly. And I'm going to give you an example, and then I want to talk about some research about why adding something exciting on the road ahead fixes that feeling of being on autopilot and shakes you free from that heavy blah languish that you're in. Have you ever noticed that the moment that you plan a vacation, let's say you're going to take the kids to Disney, you're going to get away, you immediately feel better. You're not even on vacation. Research shows that when you plan something like that, you get 2 bites at the excitement apple. The first one is just planning it and having that trip to Disney out on the road ahead, because now you're excited because you're looking forward to it. And the second boost that you get is when you actually go on the vacation. But the reason why it's so powerful to have something out in the future is just think about how it impacts you before you go away. You're not even there yet. It's a week before you're going to board the plane with your kids and go down to Disney. And you walk into work on a Monday, your boss can pile work up to your eyeballs. Do you care? I don't think so. Why? Because Disney is in your future, and that's pretty cool. So even the demands of your current day-to-day blah draining life, they don't get you down. Why? Because on the road ahead, you got something pretty cool. That trip, just planning it, just visualizing it, just thinking about what's in your future, it boosts your mood, it picks your thoughts up, it even helps you be more productive. And this is all simply because you intentionally put something out in the future, a new destination that makes you excited. That's why this matters so much. And here's the other thing. I know what you're thinking right now. Mel, I don't have time for this shit. A new destination, a trip to Disney. I work so much, I barely see my kids. Well, I got to hit you with some research, because particularly when you're exhausted and overwhelmed and it feels like something needs to give, guess what? We tend to feel like we just need a break from it all. But the research proves something very counterintuitive. Because when you're overwhelmed like McKenna is, when you're feeling checked out, blah, you're on autopilot, cruise control, you're just kind of zoned out in life, do you know what you need? You need engagement. You need to add energizing activities to your schedule. And when you do that, something miraculous happens. You feel like you have more time. I know this is bananas, but let me just kind of unpack this study for you. This was done by Laura Vanderkam. She writes about it in this essay in the New York Times. There's a better way to reclaim your time than quiet quitting. She did a study in 2021 where she worked with super busy people just like you who feel exhausted and tapped out. The people in her study said things like, life feels very chaotic with so many different balls in the air. Same. My work to-do list is never ending. I bet you can relate to that. Or how about this one? I need a few more hours each day in order to have time to just manage my family and my life. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, what she did over the course of 9 weeks, this is really interesting. Instead of asking people to scale back or have better boundaries between work and life, you know what she taught them to do? She taught every one of these folks that are as busy and as burnt out as you that you need to add something. Whether you're building in regular physical activity, or you're building in a new little adventure, or you're putting something that requires effort, but it's meaningful to you, that you choose action over no action. So, for example, instead of just passing out on front of the couch and watching your favorite series, pick up a book and read a novel instead. She also introduced people as busy as you to this principle of take one night for you. And that just means commit for a few hours once a week to doing something you enjoy. It can't be work-related, not with your family, but just for a few hours each week. Instead of doing less, add something in. Join a choir, a softball team, and something that makes you. And here's what's amazing about it. When it's something you're interested in doing, even though you look at your schedule right now and it's a giant Jenga puzzle and you're like, I cannot add one more thing to this thing, baloney, you can. Because when you sign up for something that matters for you, you commit to doing it. It nudges you to figure out the logistics, to arrange the childcare, to get your spouse or a friend or a family member to cover for you, even if life feels so busy that you can't even contemplate such a thing right now. And it works. It works. The participants in her studies, believe it or not, even though their schedules when they began the study were just as overwhelming as yours, when they committed to doing something literally like just singing in the church choir, you know what they reported? That their time felt more abundant. This is the Disney effect that I'm talking about. This is like picking your head up out of a monotonous part of the road trip and seeing, oh, wow, every minute we're getting closer and closer to Yellowstone. Oh, wow, I got church choir this week. I got my pickup soccer league this week. I got the tutoring that I'm going to do as a volunteer this week. It re-energizes you. And in fact, people even reported making more progress at work, finding more time with their family. They had an increase of energy and engagement that spilled out into all areas of their life. You know, the fact is, we all have the same 168 hours every single week. But here's the thing about time, and it's also true about the journey of life. Your relationship to time and your relationship to where you are in life is also about the stories that you're telling yourself. Your life is always going to be filled with to-do lists. But when you add something that you actually want to do, that's the secret. You got to add something that means something to you. What happens is when you add that in and it competes with your to-do list, time feels different. You feel more in control of your life because you're saying, I know I got all this shit I got to do, but guess what? I'm making it to choir. I'm making it to tutoring. And speaking of tutoring, I've got all this study right here. Here's another study from just a few years ago that I think is really fascinating. So they took university students, right? Super, super busy. And they divided them into two groups. One group of students were told they could leave class 15 minutes early. So they gave them 15 minutes of extra time. The other group was asked to stay 15 minutes longer and help edit at-risk high school students' essays. You want to know who felt like they had more time? The kids who took 15 minutes to edit those high school students' essays. Why? Well, logically, it doesn't make any sense, does it? Because we literally gave the other students 15 extra minutes. But what did they do with it? Nothing meaningful. They probably walked over to the co-op or sat around and scrolled through social media. What happens to you when you intentionally spend time doing a rewarding and engaging activity? Your time feels less scarce. That's pretty freaking cool. And when you put time into something that is meaningful to you or you find energizing, your whole narrative about your life and your power changes. You no longer feel like your life is a slog. I do this all the time. I'm probably somebody from the outside that you think is one of the busiest people you know, and I am. And there's that saying, you want something done? Ask a busy person. because they figure out how to fit things in. I am doing this 75-day challenge, 75 hard. Why? Not because I have a lot of extra time, but because I know that when I add something in that matters to me, it levels up all areas of my life. I find time when it's important. And there's something about getting really disciplined and excited about doing something for yourself, even though you're super busy, that does spill out into the other areas of your life. In fact, my husband, Chris, right now, he's getting a master's in spiritual psychology. Does he have time to do that? No, not as a hospice volunteer, not as he is busy launching a new program for his men's retreat called Soul Degree. He doesn't have time to do that, but actually he does, because he is making the time. I have seen this research work in my own life. I am telling you, as counterintuitive as it sounds, please look at the road ahead. The best days of your life are ahead of you. You have to start dreaming big right now. And it creates this upward spiral. And I want to give you 2 free, zero-cost resources to help you dream bigger and to help you get clear, because there's a lot of you that are going to now write into me and be like, I don't know what I want. I see the open road, Mel. I want it to be great, but I don't know what I want. No problem. We got you. Zero cost. In the show notes, there are links to 2 episodes of this podcast. One is about dreaming bigger, getting in touch with that burning flame inside of you. And that podcast episode is called Your Dreams Are Not a Joke. It's one of our most shared episodes. You're going to love it. Second episode, another one of our top performing episodes. You guys love this one. You've been sharing it like crazy. It's a toolkit for setting goals. Both of those are master classes that will help you. You're pulled over at this mile marker. We want you to look at the road ahead. You got to start dreaming bigger. You got to insert something into your life right now that makes you excited. So, back to my story about the road trip, this is like the ultimate destination is your dream. So that would be Yellowstone. That's what we're reaching near the end of this trip. But coming up next on the journey, it's the world famous Corn Palace, people. We're going to hit that in an hour. And so that's how you toggle between adding something in now to create energy and then getting serious about those dreams that are out on the road ahead. And I have one other free resource for you. I mentioned that I'm doing 75 hard. You don't have to commit to a 75-day mental discipline challenge. If you want to just add a quick challenge in immediately and find extra time, and if you haven't signed up yet for the Wake Up Challenge, it's zero cost thanks to the support of all of our sponsors. We can provide you with all these resources. I just love that. And it's a 5-day challenge. Let me inspire you. Let me support you. The whole thing happens in your inbox. And I'm not only going to get you out of bed and moving, but by doing so, you're also going to find a little bit more time that you need so that you can start to do the work to reinvent your life. That's what this is all about. And you can do this. I started at the very beginning by saying there is a flame burning inside you. There is. You know it. You can feel it. You know that you're meant for more. You know you are not supposed to be broken down on the side of the road on this road trip called life. And I think we underestimate how quickly you can turn your life in a new direction. We spend so much time thinking it's not possible. We put so much energy into our excuses and our fears. And when you get to a point where you can say, I'm done feeling this way. I want this to feel good. I want to turn my life in a new direction. It is amazing how quickly things can happen. And so I want you to hear from a listener to this podcast named Denise, who had been thinking about doing something for 20 years. As she's going down the road of life, deep within her, the flame that was burning was, I would love to be a voiceover artist. I would love to do that. And for 20 years, she thought about turning her life in a new direction. Just thought about it, just like you keep doing. And then she finally pulled over. She charted a new course, and she did. And check out what happened.
I have had the dream of being a voiceover artist for 20 freaking years. I felt like a part of me died each day in mundane 9 to 5. And it's the sense of loss of a life unlived and unfulfilled. I want my dream, And I want the fearless and faith-filled conviction that I will be safe and okay as I do this and not worry about how my husband or anyone else feels about it. I just knew I cannot settle anymore. And now I'm reflecting on the past 6 months. I set a goal to have a live voiceover ACX profile by June 13th so I could narrate books. And the profile didn't go live until August. I wasn't hard on myself, but celebrated what I did do, actually taking and posting a photo of myself and taking action steps. Just today, I received my second narration job, so there are now 2 books in the works. I have 3 more auditions being reviewed. I'm auditioning for commercials and reaching out to potential clients with plans to be a full-time, thriving voiceover artist by this time next year. I'm a happier, more committed to my dreams person with infused energy, drive, and excitement. I know the best is yet to be. Thank you, Mel, and your team.
I'm just basking in just the sound of a person's voice who is fulfilled because she got serious about what she wanted her life to look like. She did that in 6 months. And this is something she was thinking about for 20 years. So whether you've been thinking about this flame inside you and you feel it burning bigger or bigger for 20 minutes, or like Denise, you have been pushing off your dreams. You have been on autopilot. You've been worried about what everybody's going to think. And you have been preventing yourself from turning your life in a new direction or charting a new course or picking a new destination. Stop it. You only get one life. And what Denise said is right. Living on autopilot, that is a life unlived and unfulfilled. You do have dreams, and you do deserve to make this next leg of the journey of this thing called life as exciting and as amazing as you possibly can. So pull over, assess where you are. Remember, do not stare at the rearview mirror, but focus on the windshield because you're going forward, my friend. Remind yourself that the best years of your life are on the road ahead. And then I want you to take that wheel and I want you to turn your life in an exciting new direction. Because if you're willing to do that, that means you're willing to take responsibility for your happiness. You're willing to take responsibility for where you go next. And I promise you, you will travel far beyond what you can currently see. Because one day, this epic road trip that we call life, it's going to be over. And if what everybody who has approached that final leg of the journey says is true, it's going to happen for you and me in the blink of an eye. So please, find the courage to create a new course for your life. Find the courage to take the wheel and steer it in whatever direction your heart desires. And find the courage to enjoy it. Look, I want to also say one thing to you. This stuff is kind of heady. So I'm doing my best to keep this like fun and visual because when you get lost in thought, it's going to be hard to apply this. And so first of all, I want to commend you for sticking with this because now we're going to dig into the exercise. I wanted you to have the understanding because oftentimes I personally find that if somebody just throws a science-backed tip or exercise or tool or tactic or strategy at me, it sounds so dumb on the surface that without the underlying kind of research and mechanics and science that explains why this simple thing works, you will literally roll your eyes and not do it. So now that you have that background, I'm going to reward you with the exercise that I want you to practice. And this one is simple. So if you're cynical, if you're really smart, if you're analytical, it will sound stupid. But I want you to hang in there because there is a really powerful thing going on in your neural pathways when you try this. And it's also an incredibly cool and fun thing to do with your family with your friends. In fact, I get texts from people all over the world who are doing it, and my kids who do not live with us, our 2 adult daughters, they constantly text me pictures of what I'm about to ask you to do. So I promise you, it's worth trying. This is an exercise called looking for hearts. And this is how you play it. Every single day when you wake up, you are going to go on a scavenger hunt in your day-to-day life, and you are going to try to find a naturally occurring heart shape somewhere in the world. It could be a cloud that's shaped like a heart. You could look at your coffee and see that the foam on top has made the shape of a heart. You might get out of your car and you'll see a stain on the floor or a leaf that's the shape of a heart. I constantly see rocks. I see heart shapes in the top of mountain ranges. I see the shape of hearts in brick buildings all the time in terms of the different colors of bricks. And here's what's interesting about this. What you'll realize is that there are probably 10,000 heart shapes that are around you in your day-to-day life. The stain on the carpet, the spot on your dog's back, the tear in a pair of pants, the shape of a leaf. They're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And right now, you walk right by them. Why? Well, because they're not important to you. You have not told the bouncer of your brain to let the hearts in to the nightclub. So you are walking right past all these things, and they are actively being blocked out. It is not in your conscious mind. The second you start playing this game, Find a Heart, you will experience something amazing. You will experience your brain going to work for you. And so here's how I want you to play this, because I do want you to play this every single day. This is truly not a game about finding hearts. This is about training your mind. This is a game where you are telling your mind, I am the freaking boss. Bouncer of the mind, I pay your salary. You are going to do what I tell you to do. You are going to find me a heart. And if you want to get paid, you are going to find me a heart. That is your job today. Find me a heart. So get intentional about that. And then I want you to go through your life and just let a heart shape in. And when you see it, here's what I want you to do. And if you're really analytical, you're going to think this is the cheesiest damn thing you've ever heard, but I want you to do this because there's neuroscience involved. When you see that heart, I want you to pause. And I want you to really stare at it for a minute. You can take a photo of it. If it's a rock, you can pick it up, or a leaf, and take it with you. Because I want you to reward your brain for being flexible and for trying to help you. I want you to take that moment for real, as cheesy as this sounds. The foam on the top of your coffee, the shadow on the floor. I want you to take a minute and really savor it and literally just go, holy shit, there it is. That's pretty cool. Yesterday, I walked right past this and I didn't even see it. Thank you, mind. Wow. You just changed in real time. You just let something in that I asked you to let that in. And if you really want to supersize this, if you're somebody that's really struggling with a sense of self-worth or hope or really believing that you can turn things around, I want you to look at that and tell yourself that that was placed there for you to find. That this was placed there because you needed to see evidence that it is in fact possible to change the way you think. It is in fact possible to tell your mind what you want to see more evidence of and for your mind to work for you. And once you see one heart, you will start seeing hearts everywhere. The more hearts that you see, the more that you are connecting into magic, the more that you realize that your brain is trying very hard to help you. It is going to point out hearts in the moss. It's going to point out hearts on the sidewalk. You're going to see hearts on people's clothing. You're going to see them in paintings. It's weird. They're like everywhere. It's as if there is this entire world that you and I live in, and we walk by it every single day. And I think that's true about everything that you want. that there is evidence all around you that things are working out, that people are trying to help you, if you're willing to see it. You know, at the end of the day, finding hearts is not about finding hearts. It is about something so much bigger, because it's proof that you can change the wiring in your mind. You can manipulate and program this filter, the RAS, to make it work for you. And every time you see a heart, it is evidence that it is true. And so it's important, because this is the first step of a mindset reset. Because if you didn't think, my mind can change, it can allow me to see the world differently. If I can't get you to see and experience that, you will never even bother trying thought substitution. And I will say there is something that some of you may experience. So this comes from Nady in Germany. And she wrote, Mel, I loved what you said about looking for hearts, and I've been trying it. And I even saw 2 hearts within an hour. But then I got nervous and was almost afraid to find them. So how do you overcome the fear of making things better? I relate to this because we're used to the way that things are. We're used to the default programming in our minds, even if it makes us miserable. And when you start to catch a glimpse of how things could be different, I think sometimes if you've experienced a tremendous amount of heartache, or you've tried so many times to put yourself out there, the idea of believing again that it's worth trying again, that is what's scary. Here's what I have to say to you. This is not about hope. This is hard science. Because you're living with programming right now. And I am here to tell you it's outdated. In fact, when you start to really play around with this next piece of how you change the way that you think, you're going to realize that you're not even listening to your voice. You're listening to someone else's voice. It's probably your mom's or your dad's or another caregiver's. Because that negativity that's in your mind that chips away at you, that default programming that you don't even really hear, for me, I call it my campaign of misery. I did not create this when I was 6 or 7 or 8. I was taught this. And so you're going to start to realize that not only do you have the power to change the filter, yes, you can see reasons to be happy. Yes, you can spot wins instead of reasons why you're a loser. Yeah, you can pay more attention to the people in your life that make you feel great instead of chasing the ones that make you feel like crap. You can change all of this. You can make your mind work for you. But what you're going to realize very quickly is, holy cow, like there's this default thing in my mind that's like fighting my desire to be happy. It's fighting my desire to win. And so that's where we're going to go next, because there is an entirely different reality. One of the reasons why I always say to you is, I love you. I believe in you. I believe in your ability to create a better life. The reason why I say that to you all the freaking time, and I mean it, is because I know you don't say that to yourself. And I didn't say that to myself for a long time either. And I don't need to meet you to say, I love you. Because love is a verb. Love is how you show up in the world. This podcast is an act of love for me. It is a way to connect with you. It's a way for me to support you and empower you. And I show up here because I do believe in you. I don't care what's happened to you. You cannot convince me that you cannot change. I have way too much evidence on my side. You only have your experience. I've got an army of 1 million people that I've seen change. And so I know you can change because I know you can take the actions to make your mind a better place. You can take the actions to make your life feel better. You can take the actions to improve your relationship with yourself. And this is the most exciting part. This is the thing I am working on myself day in and day out. You can take the actions that reclaim your brain, that reprogram your mind and that make your mindset and your thoughts work for you. I mean, all this shit is made up that we're saying anyway. So if you can think bad thoughts, why not think good ones? Does it actually make you happy to tell yourself that you suck and that there's something wrong with you? And is it even true? So if you can make that crap up, if you can adopt what somebody else says about you, can't you make up your own? Of course you can. And so let's get to that substitution diet. This is the Mel Robbins way to describe what researchers call cognitive bias modification. It's literally catching default thoughts and substituting something better. And one of the best examples of this is the next time that you start obsessing over what could go wrong. What if I don't like it? What if it doesn't work? What if I get rejected? What if what if I look stupid? What if they judge me? What if this? Say this. What if it works out? What if it works out? The more you say out loud, what if it works out? You substitute the negative bullshit with something positive. What if it works out? I mean, can you argue with me on that one? What if it works out? I didn't say it will work out. I said, what if it does? Because you don't know whether it's going to work out or not, do you? And when you allow your default wiring to filter the world with the belief and the thought that, what if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if this? What if that? Those thoughts filter the world a certain way. The thought, what if it doesn't work out, makes you not apply. It makes you not write that book. It makes you not go to the gym. It makes you sit home alone. Those thoughts are filtering your experience of life a particular way. And because the filter in your brain is paying attention to what you care about, it believes that's what you want. So as you scan the world around you, you see reasons why it's not going to work out. Didn't happen last time. It's a weird world after the pandemic. I don't want to embarrass myself. I feel uncomfortable. When you start to engage in thought substitution, what if it all works out? What if leaving my house is the best decision I've made in a decade? What if I meet the person that I was destined to meet? What if going to 90 meetings in 90 days at AA changes my life? What if it all works out? See how that mindset switch, cognitive bias modification, see how that leads you to feeling more encouraged? What if I make these 10 cold calls and nobody takes the call, but I'm okay? What if I walk up to this house that I think is going to go on the market and I knock on the door? And it turns out I buy it before it comes on the market. What if I get into my dream school? You're more likely to apply if you're like, well, what if it does work out? And this is why this is so important, because your brain is paying attention to what's important to you. And I don't think any of us have a clue how much airtime we give to negative thinking, to beating ourselves down, to assuming that life is going against you, to thinking something's wrong, to beating yourself up, to comparing yourself to other people. And when you start to pay attention to two facts, number one, your mind is trying to help you. And number two, when you figure out what's important to you and you make it a priority, your mind will adjust in real time and help you see an entirely new world. And when you see that it's possible that you could get into your dream school, that's a whole new world. When you see that it's possible that you'll make the best friends of your life in the next year of your life, a whole new world is possible. When you see that you can not only get your dream job, but you can land your dream job and it has a bonus, a whole new world is possible. And it begins with two simple things I want you to do. Look for hearts so you experience that a whole new world is possible, that there's a world that you're walking by every day, This is critical. I do this every single day. And, it sounds like such a dumb thing. And I often think about, this moment where a reporter's like, so what's your secret to success? And I'm like, look, I look for a heart every day. I mean, it sounds so stupid, doesn't it? But what I'm actually saying is I am actively engaged in the process of training my brain. Just like you would lift weights or resist weights or whatever it is that you do if you want biceps, you are training your body to be strong. I'm training my mind every single day to work for me. And every time I see a heart, it's a reminder, oh yeah, my brain will tell me what I want it to tell me. And so I can either let the campaign of misery take control of my RAS, or I can tell my brain, no, it is important to be happy. It is important to feel like I'm winning. It's important to put myself out there in light. I need some help with this brain. And so the hearts for me is a simple way to explain this profound amount of research out there and put it into practical use. And this idea of a substitution diet for the shit you've been thinking forever that no longer serves you. That's a simple way for me to explain to you. You're not stuck with the thoughts that you think. That idea right there, that's the whole thing. That's everything. You are not stuck with the thoughts that you think. You can let them rise up, but you don't have to grab them and grip onto them and wrestle them to the ground. You'll be like, oh, there's that stupid thought that my dad taught me to think. Bye, Dad. I choose to think something else because I know what cognitive bias modification is. And that horse shit that you said that I was a failure or didn't mount up to something or wasn't wanted, I don't believe that shit anymore. Because it's important to me to not only see hearts, but it's important to me to encourage myself, to believe in myself, to believe in my life and my effort and my ability. Because that's what I believe. That's why I'm here. You can do this. If I can do this shit, you can do this stuff. You have no idea how screwed up I was. If you wanted to go toe-to-toe with somebody that had like the darkest thoughts in the world, Mel Robbins will go toe-to-toe with you any day. And you cannot get rid of it entirely, but thought by thought, you can learn how to not get hooked by it, and you can learn how to start to reprogram your mind. And I'm also going to tell you something. I said at the very beginning, it's not one and done. Like, this is not toxic positivity. I'm not here to sell you a pill to make your problems go away. I'm here to tell you that there will be times in your life where the negativity comes back and the default comes back and things get overwhelming. That happened to me just 6 months ago. When big things happen in your life, it can take you down for a little bit. But coming back to this stuff over and over, looking for hearts, there's the confirmation. I still, even though life sucks, my brain is still trying to help me. And really, I'm telling you, I call it hand-to-hand combat with your mind because that's what you're engaged in. Those negative thoughts either hook you and take you down, or you're like, boop, that's interesting. My grandmother's still bitching at me and she's dead. I don't really need this in my default program anymore. You know, that's what's available to you. So I mentioned earlier that this cognitive bias modification tools that we're talking about today work because not only have I used them in my own life, but also because we've had 250,000 students that I've taught a course about reframing your mindset, resetting your mindset to. And we do these extensive surveys afterwards. And one of the things that I know from our data is that the number one negative thought that people struggle with is, I'm not good enough. And I believe that everybody struggles with this. There are two reasons why. Number one, many of you grew up in a household where your lived experience was that you were told you weren't good enough, or you felt like you weren't good enough. And even if you grew up in a household where you didn't feel that way, you felt safe, you felt secure, You went to an elementary school or a middle school, and you went through the period of human development called adolescence and teenage years, where you separate from your family, and your number one objective developmentally is to bond with friends. And it's during that horrendous period of time that we call middle school that most of us start to size ourselves up in relation to other groups of people. Oh, they're the theater kids, I'm not good enough for them. Oh, the sports kids, I'm not good enough for them. Oh, the rich kids, I'm not good enough for them. It's a protection mechanism because you don't want to get hurt by approaching a group that you think is going to reject you. This is totally normal. We all have it. And ironically, what we do is we tell ourselves we're not good enough for certain groups or certain people. But our brains pay attention. And our brains at that little age and the filter in our brain starts to change and starts to scan the world for all the places you don't belong. That's my opinion about where it begins. It is part of everybody's development to go through this period where life is a sorting hat and you're trying to figure out where you fit in. And I wish that our brains did the opposite and basically scanned the world and were like, oh, well, let's just scan and see all the opportunities to fit in so that you amplify your strengths. But instead, we focus on our lack, and we do it as little kids. And because we've been doing it for so long, whether it began inside your home because of how you were treated, or in your community because of how you were treated, it definitely was an experience that you had when you were younger of trying to fit in. It happens to all of us. And the opportunity of your adult life and the rest of the time that you have is to reclaim your experience of life, to see all the places, not where you don't fit in, but all the places where you can go, all the places where you could be, all the wins that you have, all the strengths that you have, all the magic you have to give. That's the opportunity when it comes to changing your mindset and changing your brain. And when you take that on, because I believe that's true, I believe you fit in. I believe you belong. I believe you have incredible gifts to share with the world. I believe that you deserve happiness. I believe that you have huge wins every single day and that I want you to give yourself credit for them. I believe that you've survived a ton of crap and you don't even give yourself credit for that. I believe that you're pretty awesome. And I want you to start to have a brain that filters the world in that direction. And so that's why I'm telling you this. We all struggle with it to some extent. And in moments of weakness, it's going to be there again. But that's okay because you can search your hearts and you can tell yourself, well, what if it all works out? You can remind yourself that we're all a work in progress. You can look for wins every day instead of the things that went wrong. You can spend more time with people that make you feel good instead of chasing places you really don't like. All of this is possible. And I want this for you, which is why I hope you'll try this. And simple reframes, if you don't feel good enough, is you can be like, I'm a work in progress. I can figure it out. The people who love me are the people who I need in my life. This is important. I really hope you take this on. And this is the work that you'll do for the rest of your life. And it's worth it because the happiest days of our lives are the road ahead of us. Truly, I want that for both of us. And I've spent far too much time beating myself up and looking for what's wrong and searching for reasons to feel tortured or lonely and to stop myself. It's just horseshit. I'm so sick of it. And I'm sure you're sick of it too. And, I'm sharing all this because even though I teach this stuff, it's easy stuff to listen to or talk about. You got to put it into practice, and so do I. You got to catch yourself when the negativity starts. You got to cut off the voice in your head that is not your own. You got to knock this middle school shit off and start claiming your adult life because you do deserve to be happy. And even if you don't love yourself, I'll tell you what, I love you. Even if you don't believe in yourself, that's okay. I believe in you. And I'm going to keep on saying it until you catch up with me. Because I do believe that you can take the steps to reprogram your mind. You can take the steps to shut up that negativity in your head. You can take the steps to filter the world in an entirely new way and see how it's working to help you. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time to create a better life. Now go find a heart. I love you. We had a lot of people submit questions for you. First one is from Charmaine.
I want more peace, more love, more compassion, more passion, more connection, more joy, less struggle, less stuff, less complications, less stress, less anxiety. And I don't just want it for myself, but for every woman. This shit is real. I see it in my girlfriends too, in this human experience. My question is, why? Why does this feel like a struggle? Thank you, Mel, for being brave enough to do this work. I love you.
Well, luckily, we got Dr. Lou. I know you said that I wasn't allowed to call you doctor, but you are a doctor. So what would you say? Like, what, are we addicted to the struggle? Why do we all feel it?
I love Charmaine's question. Charmaine, this is the deal. This question is what I call the magical wand. Everyone magically wants more happiness, a better life, less stress. We all want it. And I love that Charmaine wants it for the entire world because I think that's what we're talking about in this conversation. So why? Why do we stuck? It's because we are avoiding, Charmaine. What are the things in your life right now that you actually have control over that you're not taking control? Because the struggle is there, and we're going to have some level of struggle, but it's there because you're not taking action. Right? We know scientifically, Mel, that if we actually act in line with our values, the things that matter the most to us, right? We actually have less stress, less anxiety. We have better quality of life. And so, Charmaine, I'm asking you, what are the actions you can take towards those things that matter the most that would stop this avoidance? Because I bet what's happening is there's a lot of avoidance.
You know, even if she just started to approach, to use your terms, the less stuff.
Yeah.
She just started to declutter. Would that shift the feeling?
100%. Think about this. If you walk in your office and you go into work and you show up and there's a bunch of files and it's a mess, what does that do to your brain? Immediately, you feel scattered, right? Even if she started to approach by just organizing her life a little bit, one little step at a time. And that's the thing I want everybody to hear very loudly and clear. It's not an all or nothing, right? But little approaches towards the things that matter the most can start to really change our lives. And that's how we get more happiness. That's how we feel better.
Well, what I wonder is if we're really wired for emotional peace, and if we're yearning for these things like happiness and more joy and less struggle, we're yearning for it because it is meant for us. And I think, well, I'm curious, if somebody's struggling, is that a sign that avoidance is everywhere?
Yes. Simple yes. And this is why I've never met anyone in my life, professionally and personally, okay, who have not been avoiding. The avoidance is not behind their struggle, right? I've never met, like in my moments that I myself am having the most hardest time, it's because I'm avoiding.
How do you figure out what you're avoiding?
So you pause and you ask yourself, if I were to go towards this, what would happen? So in the case of your family friend, it's easy, right? You're clearly avoiding. But it's like, if I go towards whatever X, Y, and Z is, do I feel more or less uncomfortable? If you feel more uncomfortable, you've been avoiding. Because the avoidance is designed to bring our emotional temperature down, but keeps us stuck. So by definition, going against avoidance will create some level of discomfort. Right? So if I do this, does it keep me stuck? If I do this, does it keep me feeling comfortable, so to speak? If the answer is yes, you're avoiding.
What are the top things that your patients come in and are struggling with, and how does that connect with avoidance?
So Mary came in because she was in a job that she hated.
Yep.
She put on 100 pounds in that job, 100 pounds, but kept doing it because her brain said, well, at least I have an income.
Yes.
And she was facing that. She just wouldn't face the reality that she hated that job. You know, a CEO of a Fortune 500 company I worked with avoided dating. His superpower in his job. And if you met him in the street, you're like, this guy can get anybody that he wants. He was terrified of dating and women. Now he's 45, super successful, no relationships, no meaningful relationships. Joanna avoided asking for a raise. She's single mother, 3 kids. That raise, she's in the same job for 10 years. People getting passed for promotions. She's not getting those promotions. And she just was so terrified that she wasn't good enough. She hadn't done enough. She couldn't ask for a raise. She told me, if I was really good, they would have given me a raise. I was like, well,
that's not how it works.
I don't think it works that way.
Sometimes it does.
Sometimes, but it's in the corporate world. Sometimes it doesn't.
Those are great examples. And so as their therapist and practicing CBT therapy, are you then coaching them through the approach method?
Yes. So for everybody I work with, they start to think of me as the avoidance police because I was like, well, that's avoidance. So the first thing we really do is we identify their avoidance. I just had a patient make a list of everything she's avoiding. And she's like, I don't need to make a list. I'm like, I'd like to see that list because we lied to ourselves. So the first thing I do with every patient is let's identify all the domains in your life where you're avoiding. And then, like this patient that I mentioned, she was even avoiding eating healthy because she was like, well, if I eat healthy, then perhaps I'll feel better, but I'm not sure. I do want to feel better, but I really don't know how to eat healthy. And so she created this whole story that eating healthy somehow was a problem. And she ate junk, feel bad, and then continue the cycle. And then I work with patients on shift, approach, and align, which is the third skill that we didn't talk a lot about, but it's really the idea of living a values-driven life.
Wow. Have you stopped to consider that the best place to make a change is by letting go of things, of projects, of thinking patterns, of relationships that no longer serve you? And the big question is how? How do you know when it's time? And I have got not only a fantastic visual metaphor to help you understand this concept, but I also have a really interesting way to approach this. We're going to talk about the fact that your energy and your intuition is always there to tell you when it's time to let something go because it no longer serves you. So to get into this topic, I want to introduce the metaphor. And it was the metaphor I had started talking about as we were on that hike together. I mean, here in the United States anyways, it is autumn. It is the fall season. We are all about pumpkins. We are in harvest time. There are corn stalks everywhere. We're getting ready for orange and red and all those amazing colors and carrot cake. I mean, I love this time of year. And I realize it may not be fall where you are. If you're, part of our global fan base halfway around the world, it's summertime. Don't get hung up on the fact that I'm using fall as a metaphor. I personally believe whenever it is that you are listening to this episode, even if it's 2 years from now, you're listening to this right now because you are meant to hear it right now. Because there is a new season that needs to start in your life, and that's going to require you to let go of things that no longer serve you. And so let's talk about the metaphor of what happens to a tree when the fall season hits. And in researching this for you, because, it's one thing to just kind of tell you a metaphor. It's another thing to really understand it and explain it. This was fascinating. I know we learned about chlorophyll and fall and the life cycle of a tree in elementary school, but I had forgotten most of this stuff. So check this out. The reason why a tree has leaves is because the tree needs energy to survive. It needs energy to grow. And the leaves have a very particular purpose. The leaves are there to take the sunlight and convert it to energy so that the tree can grow. And in exchange, the tree gives a ton of water back to these leaves. I mean, this process of the leaves sprouting and the leaves growing and the leaves taking its surface area and converting the sun into energy so the tree can go from a tiny little acorn to a mighty oak, that is a lot of energy. And there's this reciprocal nature to the relationship that a tree has to its leaves. because the tree has to bring in tons of water in order to fuel this energy exchange. And here's the reason why leaves fall off a tree. In the middle of winter, at least here in the United States, when the ground is frozen and snowpack is on top, there is no water for the tree. And if those leaves with their big flat surface were to stay on that tree through winter, the leaves would kill the tree. It would suck the tree dry of all the water that it needs. An interesting thing about fall is that, we look at the leaves turning, and we look at the leaves dropping gently and falling down to the ground as this beautiful thing that happens. This natural thing that happens. It's so lovely. It's just wonderful. Isn't this delightful? Do you want to know that this is almost like a violent act? That the trees are pushing those leaves off its branches. The tree is basically going, yo, if you are hanging around on my branches through the wintertime, you are going to suck me dry of all my energy. I am going to die if you don't get off my freaking branches. The tree literally pushes them, ejects them, kicks them out of their life. Why? Because there is no reciprocal energy exchange that can happen during the winter. The tree has to conserve its energy to survive. And after the winter season, once those leaves are gone and the tree can conserve its energy instead of giving it all to that leaf while killing itself. I bet you got areas of your life where you're giving all your energy into a relationship or into your work or into some stupid thinking pattern that you've been doing for years that makes you feel bad. You put all your energy in one direction. You get nothing in return. That's what fall is for a tree. The fall season for a tree is, thank you very much for spring and summer. You were amazing. This relationship between the leaf and the tree, this was reciprocal. You got energy from me. I got energy from you. Bada bing, bada boom. And then all of a sudden, boom. This is a one-way thing. And if I hold on to these leaves, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And I'm bringing that metaphor and that visual and that documented point of view that this isn't just some lovely thing where the leaves, change colors and it's so beautiful and now we all drink a pumpkin spice latte. That's not what this is. This is a tree's survival. This is about energy. This is about the fact that in order to grow, in order to be strong, to be the best you got to surround yourself with relationships and work and projects and friendships and habits where there is an equal reciprocal exchange that you give and you get in return. And that's where we're going to start when it comes to how I want you to think about this concept of letting go. We're going to talk about how to identify that moment when there is no longer that energy exchange, that there is something that has become a complete energy suck. And when you realize, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or a job or some habit or a place that you live, when you realize that something has become an energy suck on you, that's when you know it's time to let go. That's when you know, like that tree, that you better kick that thing off your branches because it's hanging on to you or you're holding on to it. And if you keep doing that, what will happen? And you've had this happen in your life where you've held on to things for too long, where you refuse to let things go. And what did it do? It sucked you dry. It sucked you dry of your energy. It sucked you dry of your vitality. It made you feel depleted. Instead of those leaves or that project or that person withering away and falling to the ground so that you could regain your strength, so that you could step into a new season of your life, no, you gave it all to them. You held on for too long. Well, guess what? That's not happening anymore. Because what we're going to talk about when we come back from a short word from our sponsors, which I want you to listen to, because, by the way, our sponsors, they're the reason why I can show up twice a week. There is a reciprocal exchange between us. They literally pay for this show, which is why I'm so enthusiastic about it, so we can put this out there around the world for free. So I want to give an energy exchange back to the amazing sponsors of the Mel Robbins podcast. Take a listen. We're going to be right back because we're going to now talk about in detail, what do I mean by reciprocal energy exchange? And where are the major areas in your life where you tend to start to have this be a one-way thing, where you're given all the energy and you're the one that's depleted and dry? All right, I'll be right back. You hang on to my branches. We're not done yet. It's really green right now, which means these trees are holding on to it. Chlorophyll. That chlorophyll is coming through, but in literally a matter of days, the green is going to leave those leaves, yellow, orange, red, brown, purple. It's going to take over, and those leaves will have served their purpose, and they will all of a sudden wither away and fall to the ground. That was Mel Robbins, your friend who has a degree in botany. No, just kidding. I want to touch on one point from what I said on the trail before we get into this energy exchange and how you're going to use your intuition and the fact that you deserve to have an exchange, a reciprocal nature to what you give and what you receive back from it. I want to talk about one thing that I said, which is the leaves served their purpose. When the leaves are green, the leaves are bringing energy to the tree, and the tree is returning energy in the form of water. The reason why the leaves start to change is because the tree starts to pull back. The tree starts pulling back on the amount of water that it is sending to the leaves. The tree is starting to let go. The leaf no longer serves a purpose. And this is an important thing to say because so often we have trouble letting go of friendships, of habits, of jobs, of, for me, where I lived and raised our kids for 26 years. We recently sold our home, and by God, I held on to that for probably 2 years longer than we needed to because I had trouble letting go. But what I want you to focus on is that when something has a purpose in your life, that's an amazing thing. And it's also normal for something to serve a purpose during a specific period of time and to no longer serve a purpose in your life now or in the life you want to create. And so when you honor that a friendship served a purpose, and a really good example of this is, you know how whenever you have a new job or you move an apartment or you move to a city, that all of a sudden the patterns in your life change and your friendships change. And your friendships change because now you're doing different things. So you're bumping into different people. It doesn't mean that you're no longer friends with the people that you used to hang out with at work. But the friends that you had at work served a particular important purpose during that period of your life. There was an equal exchange back and forth. What you gave, you received back. It's why you ate lunch with the same people every day. You enjoyed them and they enjoyed you. But now that you live somewhere else, putting a ton of energy back into that relationship when you're not going to get the same back, it doesn't serve the same purpose. And that's why when you let go of friendships, you also need to let go of the judgment on yourself, like there's something wrong with me, and am I doing something wrong, and do I have any friends? Of course you have friends. The patterns of your life have changed. You're putting energy somewhere else because you're getting energy from somewhere else. This is the natural cycle of life. It's the natural cycle of relationships. And I find that when you really honor the things that you need to let go of, whether it's a job you no longer like, or a house you no longer want to live in, or a friendship you don't see very often, or maybe it's some habit. Maybe it's some habit that you used to have. So when you say something serves a purpose, you actually honor. You honor the energy it used to give you. You honor the fact that you put something into it. And you also honor the fact that not everything is going to be in your life forever. And that's what allows you to let go. You start to let go when you realize that holding on to things is holding you back. And in particular, holding on to the guilt and the judgment that you layer onto yourself that you should, but I feel guilty, but this, but that. That is definitely holding you back from creating a new life and from creating space for something new to happen. And see, that's one of the reasons why you have to learn how to let go. Because when you continue to pour your energy into things that no longer give you energy back, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill your happiness. It's going to kill your vitality. It destroys your motivation. It makes you feel depleted. It makes you feel like you're the last on your list. And so that's reason number one. And the second reason why you have to start to let go of what doesn't serve you is because as long as you are holding on to the old stuff, you have no time, no space, and no motivation to create anything new. Period. And you know this. So let's now jump into how. How do I use this energy exchange and my intuition to spot the things that are draining me dry and to let them go, push them off the branches, get them out of my life, thank them for their purpose and their service, but then get out of here because you need to make room for something new and better and energizing. Doesn't that sound good? Yeah, you better believe it sounds good. So let's do it. And one of the reasons why I want you to really focus on energy is because your energy doesn't lie. I mean, just for a second with me, just take a second. Whether you're out there walking the dog, or you're driving around in your car, or you're working from home, or you're busy doing a bunch of stuff, I want you to just stop for a second. And I want you to assess right now, what's your energy level? Think about a fuel gauge in a car. Empty to full. Empty in a human being means you feel depleted, you feel burnt out, you feel checked out, you feel like your whole life is basically pouring energy into everything else. Full in a human being basically means that you're energized, you're excited. You feel like the things that you're pouring yourself into, your habits, your routine, the people you're surrounded with, the projects you're working on, it may be difficult, but it's bringing energy back into your life too. Your energy never lies. We are energetic human beings. And I know that sounds woo-woo. We can get into the neuroscience on that on a totally different episode, but let me prove it to you. Have you ever walked into, say, a coffee shop, and the person that is behind the counter is having the world's worst day? They are super grumpy. It doesn't matter how big your smile is. It doesn't matter how nice you are. They are like, that energy actually impacts you, just like your positive energy can impact somebody else. Energy is contagious, and most importantly, when you hang out with your friend Mel Robbins, I'm going to teach you to start to pay attention to it, and I'm going to teach you to trust it, because energy is also tied to intuition. And we're going to get into this tool of how do you assess, is something giving me positive energy? Is something giving me negative energy? Is this a relationship that is one way, or is this something that gives me something in return? That is the tool we're going to talk about today. And what if the very next morning you walk into the coffee shop and you're having a bad day? Like one of your pets is really sick and it just is really bumming you out and you're feeling really low. And the person behind the counter is just the nicest person on the planet. And they look you in the eyes and they give you a big smile and they are really cheery and they compliment you. And they maybe even ask you, hey, how you doing? You're like, I'm not doing so great. Oh, I'm really sorry. Coffee's on me. How do you feel? You feel better because they poured their positive energy into you and that lifted you up. Energy is contagious. It also always tells the truth. It's like a compass. In fact, a compass runs on magnetic energy. That's why a compass always points true north. It never lies. Your energy doesn't lie either. It's why you feel kind of off around certain people. It's why if somebody texts you and you don't like them, you're like, ugh. But if you like the person, you're like, oh, yeah, cool. Energy never lies. So let's talk about how we're going to use it, okay? So I'm going to break the topic of letting go into two different types of situations. And in each one, I'm going to explain how to use energy and paying attention to the energy inside you, both that you're giving, that you're feeling, and that you're receiving back, in order to know when it's time to let go. So situation number one is super easy. And this is typically when it has to do with things or projects or a job or somebody who's like really, really engaging in toxic behavior. Okay? This is the easy stuff. This is when you have a flood of negativity around something. And I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of this, okay? So we all have a pair of pants that we're holding on to from high school or before we were pregnant or whenever that we can't freaking fit into. When you stare at those things, you're reminded that you can't fit in them. When you try to wiggle them on, especially after a shower, you feel terrible about yourself. That is something that is an example. You need to let go of that. That job that you walk into where there is a pit in your stomach and you gripe about it to your friends and you spend all this energy pouring into why you hate it and resist it, you need to find another job. That friend that does nothing but gossip and roll their eyes and drag you down and literally is such a bad influence on you, you need to let them go. And what does that mean? Well, that depends on you. Donate the pants for sure. Start redirecting your energy from complaining about your job to directing energy to looking for a new one. I mean, just imagine. That's the other thing about this. Do you know how much energy and time and effort you waste focusing on resistance and complaining? If you were to just stop complaining for a day about something that gives you negative energy, like your job or your parents or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your roommates, what if you stopped complaining? Because that's negative energy pouring out, and you directed that same effort towards something positive, like fixing it or letting it go and creating something new that makes you feel good. Like, I relate to that because I think I've spent a lot of my life pouring negative energy at things that I didn't really like, instead of realizing I needed to complete this. I needed to let this go. The roommate served a purpose 2 years ago. Not a fit right now, and that's okay. Time to kick the leaves off the branches. You know what I'm saying? Time to save myself instead of pouring everything into either another person or my energy into being upset and frustrated and disappointed. So when you have things that are for sure 100% zapping your energy, or you find yourself complaining, griping, resisting, let go. And you can do that in two ways. Obviously, donate, throw out, delete is one. The other one is take all that negative resistance that you feel in you that churns and pour it into something positive. If you can't quit your job, for example, because you need to pay the bills, no problem. Instead of complaining, instead of feeling resistance, spend 30 minutes every morning before you go to work looking for a new one. Or spend 30 minutes every morning pouring positive energy into a hobby or a project or a side hustle that brings you positive energy. And when you start to do that, you start to lift yourself up because you are now getting this reciprocal exchange by pouring energy and attention into something new and something positive. And that's going to lift you up. And by the way, that will also change your experience of that current job that you hate. I know this because I've done it. I remember being right out of, let's see, how old was I? I was 30 years old. I was pregnant with our daughter, who's now 23. And we had moved to Boston from New York City, where I had been a public defender. And I loved that job working for legal aid. And so we moved to Boston. I do not have a license to practice in Massachusetts, so I could not work for the public defender's office. I have to take the bar, but I've got bills to pay. So I get a job in this huge law firm. And working in a law firm is the exact opposite of being a public defender. When I worked in New York City for legal aid, I was in court 5 days a week from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That was my job. I was on my feet. I was, negotiating plea deals. I was talking to witnesses and police officers and judges and like that, going to clients, going to Rikers, all of it. When you get a job in a large law firm, you literally go into a high rise and sit in an office and write all day. It was the exact opposite of what I am wired to do. I knew the moment I got that job that I was going to hate it. And for a year, I would get on the commuter rail and I would commute in for 45 minutes, and then I would get off the commuter rail and I would clomp, 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 clomp over to the building, and then I would get in the elevator, and then I would take the elevator up to like whatever, the 23rd floor, and then I'd clomp, 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 clomp. I'd go into my office and shut the door. And from the moment I woke up every morning, I felt depleted. The closer I got to that office as that train clunk, 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 clunk down the tracks towards Boston, the more resistance I felt. I got nothing in return from that job. Yes, I got a paycheck and I needed it, so it served a purpose. But I was getting nothing of value back. Because when I looked at the partners in the law firm, I knew damn well that's not the life I wanted. I knew that this was not a fit for me. But I'll tell you, I made the mistake that everybody makes. Instead of recognizing that that's how I felt, instead of channeling all of that angst and resistance and into looking for something else, I sat there miserable and I felt depleted and I felt awful. And I'm going to confess this to you. I didn't even take the advice then. You know what happened to me? I got pregnant and I had a baby and I went on maternity leave. And when I was on maternity leave, that's when, with distance from it, I was like, okay, there is no way I'm going back there. No way. Now that I have escaped, there is no way I'm going back. And we've all had exes like that, right? Where you're like in it for so long, you finally let it go and break off. And they're like, what the hell was I thinking? Now that I'm on the other side and I'm away from that like energy suck, I don't want to go back to the like energy sucker vampire thing. What the hell? But when you're in it, that negativity vortex can keep you spinning and stuck. You convince yourself, but I need the money, but I can't do this, but I don't. And then you're so depleted from your complaining and the outpouring of energy and the wrong thing that you're just stuck. That was me. So I get pregnant. I go on maternity leave. Holy cow, I am free from the vortex of negativity. I've been let go, but now I got to go back. And so my husband, Chris, says to me, look, I know you don't want to go back, but here's the problem, Mel. We have a mortgage and we have a baby. And you will go crazy being home. And so here's the thing. You need to find a job. Your maternity leave ends in exactly 3 months. So that means you have 12 weeks to find a job. And you have to make $60,000 a year. That's it. And you know what's interesting? If you give a human being a problem to solve, we get pretty creative. And I'll tell you what, the night before my maternity leave, I not only landed a job, it wasn't for 60 grand, it was for 55, but that was enough. And I walked in the next day and I let go. I what do you say? I guess I quit, but they didn't let me go. I quit. But so what I'm trying to say is do not make the mistake that 30-year-old Mel Robbins made. Do not do that to yourself. Do not waste a year of your life spinning in that negativity energy vortex. Your body knows. Your spirit knows. Get rid of those pants. Push that project to the side that you don't feel inspired to work on anymore. Let it go because it is sucking your vitality dry. I'm allowed to be human.
I am. I'm allowed to be human. And we talk a lot about like nobody has to be perfect, but in our head we still have categories of acceptable imperfection and unacceptable imperfection.
What are some of the big categories that you see in your work that people say are unacceptable categories? We covered not brushing your teeth, but what are unacceptable categories?
Like being mean to somebody.
What do you mean?
Like if you were rude or you were mean to someone, or if you blew a huge deadline, if you didn't show up to something that was really important and now you look absolutely ridiculous in front of your whole profession. Like things where you've upset someone or someone's angry with you or you've let someone down. And we're not saying that was, let's repeat it. because it's not functional. We're not saying that people don't get to have their feelings about whatever you did or said or however you showed up. It's just that like I can make like a genuine bona fide mistake, and it can be very wrong of me to have done, and I still get to be human. Humans do very wrong things sometimes. And what I want to respond to it by going, okay, I don't like that. I don't want to do that again. How can I grow and heal so that I can move away from that? And I think that that's kind of what it comes down to. And if you're someone who finds yourself in this state chronically, that's when we want to start thinking about accessibility. How can I make my home more accessible? How can I make these tasks more accessible? Because there's a difference between, you know, I'm 9 months pregnant for only 3 months and it's hard for me to bend over. And so things just kind of pile up and I just let it because I have the right priorities and it'll get. But if you're someone with chronic back pain, that's not really something you can just go, well, it'll just pile up and I'll get to it when I feel better, right?
Right.
That's when we need to think a little long term, which is like, well, maybe you need a grabber.
What's a grabber?
Like a grabber.
I don't know what a grabber is.
If you've ever had like surgery and you can't like reach up or reach down, you like pull the handle and it's a long stick and there's like a little tongs at the end that pick things up for you.
Wow.
Maybe you need a stool with some wheels.
What I'm getting from you, Casey, is that when you get caught in this loop where everything's a moral obligation and everything that you're not doing is evidence that you're a loser and that you can't get yourself together, you get so stuck in making it a problem that you don't see the obvious solutions that are right in front of your face if you were to simply just give yourself a frickin' break.
Yes, because if what's wrong with you is that you're failing, the only solution is try harder. But if the issue isn't some moral failure, then you trying harder on the same kind of broken wheels isn't going to produce anything else. So, but if you go, this is a morally neutral problem, but I deserve to function. How can I get creative? How can I fix this? All of a sudden, the world opens up and there's all of these creative possibilities. Can I stop folding my clothes? Can I use paper plates for a bit? Can I get a wheelie stool? Can I get a grabber? Can I do a toy library for my kids where 2/3 of their toys stay in this closet and they only have some of their toys out and they can check them in and out as much as they want. But then like all of a sudden you have so many ideas. What if I had a 32-gallon trash can on wheels in my kitchen instead of these tiny little trash cans? Because my kids, I seem to fill up trash cans twice a day and I don't seem to take out trash enough to keep up with it. And so most of us think, well, the answer is make yourself take the trash out, make yourself more motivated, but what if we focus less on that and there was just a simple upgrade the trash can to be bigger?
It's so great. I was recently thinking about how much we aim criticism at who you are. Mm-hmm. I got to be more motivated. There's something wrong with me. Instead of looking at, well, what are you doing? And what could I change about what I'm doing? Like putting a bigger trash can on wheels in the space instead of making 55 trips every day. Mm-hmm. And where things are. Like what is it about the environment? What is it about the way that you're thinking about things? I want to give you a couple of our listeners sort of challenges and role play a little bit with you about what hacks or mindset flips or what you would want them to do as a first step.
Yeah, let's do it.
One listener writes, in the midst of my son's autism diagnosis, every single task felt like it would kill me. I had to talk myself through everything step by step to avoid the anxiety for months. When somebody's in that kind of a state, I felt, I said this about 18 months ago out loud. I can't handle one more thing. If one more thing breaks down in my life, if one more bad thing happens, you're going to have to check me in to an inpatient facility. I can't handle one more thing. Mm-hmm. She was talking herself through coaching step by step by step. What's another strategy somebody could use?
So we want to start with the perspective, which is I would say to this person, we often picture a highway as life and these sort of like side roads as like not life. And we're off on the side road with a broken car kind of going, well, I'm pushing the car and I just want to get back to life. This isn't how it's supposed to, I can't. And I think it's more helpful to envision that like, there's not this like mystical place of life where everybody's running on, like, firing on all cylinders. Like, life is, in fact, getting an autism diagnosis for your child and needing to process through that and just figuring out how we move forward. There's nothing that this person is doing wrong. They are using so much cognitive, emotional energy to process this diagnosis. I would also just say, from a personal perspective, that your son's going to be okay. Your autistic child can have a very happy, full life, and so can you. And so you're going to be okay. You're not doing anything wrong. You are not supposed to be able to do more than what you're capable of doing now. And you're right. What can we do to keep things survival, level, functional while you get through this? And that's when I would say, if this person, first off, I want this person to start using paper plates immediately. I want paper plates. I want paper napkins. I want you to be able to throw everything away right after a meal. I want you to, as much as your budget allows, outsource anything you can, whether that's cleaning or laundry or grocery delivery. I want you to pick one tiny corner of your house that you can make beautiful, and you can get it beautiful in under 5 minutes. And that's where you get to go and sit when you just can't look at anything else. I want you to make a hygiene kit for yourself with baby wipes and dry shampoo and something that smells nice. And I want you to go on Amazon and I want you to buy those toothbrushes that are single-use toothbrushes that are pre-pasted in individual packages. And I want you to put little hygiene kits all around your house, because you're just going to be in the middle of it and smell yourself and go, oh gosh. And then you'll never be more than a few steps away from ability to take care of yourself when you can't leave your child alone in the room. I want you to put a laundry basket and a trash can in every room of your house, so that anytime you create laundry or trash, you're only a few steps away from being able to be done with it in one step, not 3, 4, 5 steps. And I want you to rest.
I feel like that's what your best friend would do for you.
Mm-hmm.
What you just did was beautiful. And I think it's also an extraordinarily tactical example of your space should serve you. And so is the visual of the highway. So I'm thinking about one of our daughters who is, just processing a breakup. And she sounded so good today. This is like 24 hours. And she's like, yeah, but I'll be crying probably in an hour, because that's my process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take myself on a walk, and I'm not going to force myself to do anything today. And as I was listening to her, I'm like, wow, that's exactly right. You don't have to motor through it. You don't have to get on a revenge diet. You don't have to gossip about it all day. You can just take a step back and allow yourself to be human. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you, so make sure you subscribe. Mwah.